State. Let's bring him in. Paul Mokeski, kind enough to joining us. Paul, thanks for taking time out to be with us tonight. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing, man? Just chilling out here in Las Vegas.
Well, what is it? Probably 95 degrees out there right now.
No, it's a beautiful 82.
Ooh, boy, I better not let my wife hear that. She'll want to get out there tomorrow. Let's get right into it. I got to ask you, what is your opinion on the way they do the play-in schedule, the play-in scenario now with the 7, 8, 9, and 10 seeds?
Well, I think at first I wasn't really happy with it, but it does create excitement till the end of the season. I mean, people didn't know where they're going to be in their spots till the last day of the season, which that's what Adam Silver tried to implement, that the season would be not decided till the end. If I'm the seventh or eighth team, I'm not very happy with it. If I'm the ninth and 10th team, I'm really, really happy with it. And, it kind of brings a March Madness into the whole thing with, you lose and you're done for some of these teams. And some of the matchups here, we had a great game last night with Memphis and Golden State. Sacramento's playing Dallas tonight. And, so that's some excitement in the NBA when there usually isn't any. And, I kind of like it now.
I've grown to like it. It does give, like you said, a couple of teams a chance. And look at what Miami did a couple of years ago when they won the play-in and they made it all the way to the finals.
Yeah, I mean, it gives you a chance. It's a long shot because if you win your play-in, you're going to be playing one of the top two teams. So on the East, you're going to go play Boston or Cleveland,
Yeah.
and in the West, you're going to play OKC or Houston. But Houston's not, scaring anybody, I don't think. But it's kind of like in the NCAA when if you're an underdog and you're a 10th seed and you beat your seed, but then you're going to go play Duke or somebody.
Well, that's a great lead in, Paul, to my next question. Houston is plus 165 in the opening round matchup against Golden State, a 2 versus a 7. Why shouldn't I put a couple of pizza pies on Houston to win that series?
Yeah, I mean, Houston they're a tough team. Coach Udoku is a really good coach. He's won a championship before with the Celtics. They have a really well balanced roster. But then, when you see Golden State, even though they're not very deep and they're not very big or strong, you got, playoff Jimmy Butler and you got Curry sitting there, still throwing up 30 points. The caution I have with that, because I play with the Warriors, I love Steve Kerr's a good friend of mine, is the caution I have with that is, both those guys are banged up. And when I saw Curry hold his wrist again last night, I know if I'm the Houston Rockets and I play old school basketball, I might take a swipe at that wrist a couple times, see how that feels at the beginning of the series.
Would you would you try to antagonize Draymond Green too to try to get him off his game a little bit?
Yeah, I wouldn't do Bill Lambier on him, but yeah, I would.
Right.
I was a role player. I played for 12 years. But you know who you can push.
Yeah.
You know who you have to step back from. I mean, maybe a Kevin Willis back in the day. If I could get him instigate a little bit, it might help me. Daryl Dawkins or Kareem or somebody. I just wanted like, hey, how you guys doing, man? Everything okay at home? I just want I don't want to poke the bear there. So,
Well,
but Houston has Dylan Brooks, who
yeah.
is one of those instigation guys.
Well, that's
So
right.
I'm wondering what the over under is on when Dylan Brooks and Draymond Green get kicked out of the same game.
Wouldn't that be something? I tell you that's going to be must see TV. That's going to be an interesting opening round matchup.
Yeah, I mean, it's proof that Golden State is favored in that series,
Yeah.
and that's amazing to me. But in reality, when you look at both teams, it's I don't know if they should be favored, but it's pretty even for sure.
So is it still in your mind, Paul? Like back in the '80s, when it took the Pistons a while to get past Milwaukee and Boston, and then obviously the Lakers, and then the Bulls the same way. Is it still in your eyes like that, Paul, where you got to take baby steps to get to the top of the mountain in the NBA?
I think players move around more now than they did
Okay.
back in the day. I mean, so I think that learning curve or getting over the hump might be shorter now, but you can see it in the East, right? I'm not predetermining everything, but when you look at the East, if it comes down to Cleveland playing against Boston in the East Finals,
Mhm.
obviously Boston's been there, they've done it. Cleveland's been knocking on the door, like the Pistons knocked on the door against the Celtics and
Yeah.
and the Bulls, and maybe it's Cleveland's time to knock the door down against Celtics. I'm not betting against the Celtics, but
No.
I think there still is some of that in the league for sure.
So, speaking of the Pistons, they get the Knicks in the opening round. It reminds me again of 1984. I'll talk to you a little bit about that year in a little while. But I Pistons got an up and comer in Cade Cunningham, and Malik Beasley's having a heck of a run this year. They've got a young team. To me, it seems that the Knicks starting five are superior, but I don't think they're that deep, and I think this is a series that I think could go either way.
Yeah, I agree. The Pistons are just not, young enough to not know that they shouldn't win the series. Sometimes ignorance is bliss, right? So,
Right?
you know, uh, but at the same time, if there's a game seven, they will feel it no matter what happens. But, I think New York looks better on paper for sure, at least the starting five. But I think it's going to come down to Anthony Towns. They made that trade to make the next move. And now Anthony Towns has been in the playoffs before, but hadn't had great success. So, and he's, the New York media, it's
Oh,
time to put up or shut up. We gave a lot for you, and you're supposed to step up now and help us win this series and another series besides that. So, I think I give the edge to the Knicks. I think in the playoffs, your rotation is shorter. You can see it now, even at Golden State. You play 6 or 7 guys for the most part. I'm maybe the Knicks. With Tom Thibodeau, has a tendency to overplay his players, and
yeah.
maybe he winds them down too much. If it's a long 7 game series, that could happen. And it drives me crazy. I've been a coach for 20 years. Before I've coached at every level, and especially in a 7 game series, if the game's out of reach, you know, you need to take your guys out and give them some rest for the next game. But I know, they don't want to come out. Come on, coach, don't take a. Hey, man, we're down 20 with 3 minutes left. Go sit on the bench. That's your fault. We're 20 points down. But Tom Thibodeau is not that guy. He's going to play those guys. I think I saw a game with them playing a while back, and it was a blowout, and still the starters win the game. I'm like, why are they in the game?
Who who's got more pressure on them in the East then right now? Would it be the Knicks or would it be Boston?
I think it's the Knicks. I think they made that big trade.
Yeah.
Uh, Boston, if Porzingis is healthy, if Holiday is healthy, they have the best roster. They're the defending champions. So there is pressure that way, but sometimes there's more pressure to, we made that big trade. The Knicks got Towns, so we can't just be in the second round again. That's not good enough anymore.
No, I agree. I'm right there with you. I think the Knicks have that. You mentioned it. That New York media can be tough, and yeah, if somehow Detroit were to upset them, oh boy, I wouldn't want to be Tom Thibodeau. I think his
Well,
days could be numbered, eh?
we know how the coach's situation is going. I mean, you
Oh,
know,
it's insane.
Denver fires their coach that
Oh,
he won a championship 2 years ago, by the way. And but that's the kiss of death. Nick Nurse got fired after 2 years and win the championship. It happens all the time, but not in that timing. Like 3 games before the end of the season.
yeah.
That's mind-boggling to me. And Memphis did the same thing, and they went from 4th to 10th or 9th, whatever. And I don't know why teams are doing that at the wrong time. So but coaches, hey, I coached for 20 years. I've coached at every level. You're hired to be fired. That's coming. Get the largest contract you can get. That's what you do.
But okay, let me ask you this: when you played, back in the '80s, yeah, I mean, this stuff where the coaches didn't get along with the general manager or the owners. I mean, was it any worse now than it was back then 40 years ago? I mean, you didn't see coaches get fired like this with 5 games left in the regular season.
No, I think, well, just like in college, you're talking NIL and transfer portal, just like that. The NBA, money wise, is a billion company. Their teams are $1 billion companies. So, I mean, think about this. Phoenix fired their coach, and they still owe him $40 million over 4 years, and they still did it. And they fired 2 other coaches before that. They owe those coaches a total of $85 million. And it didn't stop them from firing it. Back when I played, budgets were tighter, salaries were smaller, but I'm not going to make $1 million decision on a whim. I'm going to stick it out and see if we can change things. And back in the day, what we did was we didn't change the coaches. We changed the roster to see if we could bring some more talent in.
Yeah.
That's what we did. And that's changed. And, when players started making a lot more than the head coaches, head coaches are making good money, man, $8-10 million a year, but players are making 50 and 60 million a year. And Phoenix has 3 players that are making over 30 and 40 million dollars. So guess who gets fired? Not those players, the coaches do. And that's just part of the coaching business now. It's not fair, but get your money and go somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know who it really hurts though? The assistant coaches, because people don't think about it. I've been there. I've been when my head coach was fired in Charlotte. I needed to go find another job. He had 2 years left on his contract. I had to go find another job, and so did 5 of our other guys. So those are the guys that end up getting hurt when you fire coaches, because the new coaches are going to bring in their own staff for the most part, and you're the odd man out.
When that Paul, when that happened to you back in 07, I think it was, or 08, did that surprise you? Did it take you by surprise?
Yeah, it did, because we were in Charlotte. Sam Vincent was the head coach. We were in Charlotte. They weren't a very good team, and we had a respectable season. And we were told we're gonna, ride with you for another year or two and see if you can turn this thing around. And I know we were. And I was planning to coach in the summer league and find some talent and get us in the playoffs the next year. And the next morning, I'm eating my cereal, and I look at Sports Center, and my head coach is fired, and that means I'm fired. So, after 1 year, back then it was unusual, but not so much anymore.
No, that's for sure. Paul Mokeski joining us here, 14-year veteran of the NBA, longtime coach, talking NBA playoffs and the state of the NBA. Lakers and Timberwolves get together. The West was such a log jam. I don't know. I'm not on the Laker bandwagon to go all the way. I think this could be an interesting matchup. I don't think Minnesota's the team they were, but I don't know. I think this is going to be an interesting matchup.
Yeah, Minnesota, they made that move.
Yeah.
They brought in Julius Randle, but they lost Anthony Towns, who was a nice bookend for Rudy Gobert, who is a unique situation in the NBA. He's 7'2", rim protector, shot blocker, defensive player of the year, but doesn't score very much. He's a liability on offense. So I think that hurts them, and they're not very deep. So the battle's going to be with, can Minnesota make the Lakers go bigger and play their big players, or will the Lakers force Minnesota to go small and play Nazi Reed at the 5 and go smaller? And if they do that, and the Lakers, who have LeBron and Luka and Austin Reeves, who's underrated, they're a very good small ball team. So there's going to be a little battle going on there. That's always a matchup thing, and it's always who wins that matchup and who kind of blinks first to make that decision. And then if you're on the other end, as a coaching staff, we have a book of scouting, and we've done all these tendencies and all this stuff. And when you're on the bench and you see that other coach blink and do what you want him to do, you're kind of like, yes, okay, good. Now we can go forward.
The one thing that worries me, obviously, I'm a little worried about the health, maybe, but the Lakers' depth, I think, is what I think could finally catch up to them in the second or third round. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, but I think they've addressed that a little bit. Austin Reeves stepped up.
Okay.
Hachimura, Hachimura is a nice player. Vanderbilt's a good defensive wing. Gabe Vincent, who was a really good player a few years ago, has been injured. He's back. Connect that shooter they got, the rookie that can shoot threes. And then they picked up late a big body, Alex Len, who's a
Oh, yeah.
seven-footer. He averages like 3 points, but he's a big body that can go in and bang, especially if you're going up against the Joker in Denver and stuff. So I think they've addressed some of those situations, but you know, anymore in the NBA, all these teams are one injury away from not getting past a playoff series. That's just, I mean, Ja Morant turns his ankle last night. Hopefully it's okay, but if
Yeah.
it's not okay, they're not going to move on because they'll probably lose Friday.
I'm glad you brought that up. If he wouldn't have turned his, I know ifs and buts are candy and nuts, but if he wouldn't have got hurt, we could have been talking about, I think, Memphis very easily playing Houston in the opening round of the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, he was having a great game and he unfortunately landed on someone's foot. Yeah, I mean, we could be looking at that. And if we were, then Golden State's in a big deal of hurt
Oh boy.
because Curry and Butler don't have enough time to recuperate. They had 4 days off now. In the NBA, 4 days off is like a vacation. You just get used to that. So you can heal your wounds. You can get guys that are injured back. So if I think Golden State would have been crushed if they didn't win that game last night.
Boy, I'll tell you one team that I've really been impressed with has been the Clippers, and they get Denver in the opening round. I believe that's going to be a dogfight. I'm really interested to see how that matchup unfolds.
Yeah, I mean the Clippers are the hottest team in the NBA at the end of the
Yeah.
season, and Harden's playing great. Kawhi Leonard, as we know, has won 2 championships, and he's been MVP, and he looks healthy and
Yeah.
playing great. And the other thing they have one of the best centers in the league that nobody knows about, Zubac. He's a great center. I think he had like 35 and 20 rebounds the other night. So they have the roster to really go a long distance. And Denver's hurting a little bit. Murray's been hurt with his hamstring, and
Mhm.
Denver's one of the I don't know how to say this, the least deep team in the NBA. They have been, even when they won it all,
Yeah.
they went 6 players deep. And he's a rock chalk Jayhawk, but if you have Brown as one of your top 5 guys or 4 guys, I don't know if that's so good an idea.
Finally, I saved the best for last. I saw you with the Bucks hat on. The Bucks and Pacers. I got to tell you, Paul, that to me really is a coin flip. Honest to God, if the Buck, I don't know if Dame's going to be able to come back in the series. I hope so for the Bucks' sake. But I think that one could go 7 very easily.
Yeah, they don't like each other. They haven't liked each other for a long time. Hell, when I played for the Bucks, we didn't like them either. So, you know, but I think if it ends up being a short series, I think Indiana is going to take it. If the Bucks can get themselves together and stretch this series out, I think Dame will come back for the
Yeah.
last couple games, and that will be a shot of adrenaline to them. But Giannis has to be healthy. And the one thing, I love the Bucks. I love Giannis, but he is one of the least skilled MVPs the league has ever had. I mean, he's an unbelievable player, but he's not a good 3-point shooter. He's a terrible free throw shooter. He's an okay passer. He has okay mid range. But what really encouraged me and gave me a hope is I think about a week or so ago, he had 20 assists in the game. And if I was on the staff there, I would play that for him and let him watch. Look at how good we are when you move the ball. Really simple. Just pass it, pass it, pass it. And look, you still have 30 points, but look how good we are when you pass the ball. Because when he passes the ball and shares the ball with other players like Portis and those guys, I mean, Cogniton had 42 points the other night, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if that can happen, I like the Bucks in that series, but I agree it could go 7 for sure.
So I'm not gonna. I won't ask you for your NBA predictor who's going to win the whole thing, but just give me a surprise team to look for that might be flying
yeah,
under the radar, maybe.
yeah. I mean, I think if there's a surprise team, it's going to come out of the West.
Okay.
And because I love OKC, I love their moves. They picked up Harkenstein, they picked up Caruso, who are veterans. That lets the big guy play the 4 instead of the 5 with Harkenstein there. But they could be upset because they don't have the experience. And
Mm-hmm.
there's 2 teams that do have the experience.
Yeah.
One is Golden State Warriors, but the real one is the Lakers. And I mean, if Luka and LeBron are healthy and Austin Reeves and their whole bunch, that could be my surprise team to at least get to the finals. I don't know if they're deep enough to beat Boston and or Cleveland, more so the Cavs than Boston, but I could see the Lakers, that Luka playing together with LeBron has turned out way better than I thought.
Boy, I'm right there with you. I didn't know if that was going to be a match made in heaven. I thought that he had at first, I thought he was better off with AD, but Luka I think, is really playing some inspired ball. And
I'll tell you that having 2 powerful ball handlers doesn't usually work. But here's the key, I think, for this year's Luka, right? He's
yeah,
playing with LeBron, a ball handler. What did he do last couple years? He played with Kyrie Irving, who is a big ball handler, and they figured it out. And last year got to the NBA Finals.
that's
So I
right.
think in Luka's mind that said, "Hey, okay, I get it now. I can share the ball, and we can still win." So I think if Luka would have joined LeBron a couple years ago, I don't know. I think they battle and they get stubborn. But now that he did it with Kyrie, and LeBron's bigger and stronger, just like Luka, I think that they could surprise some teams.
So I want to ask you a couple of questions about your playing days. I remember you with Detroit, and then you went to Cleveland, and then you went to Milwaukee. What? I mean, let's face it, they were not good. Cleveland was struggling. And then all of a sudden you go to a team that's very good, that's perennial playoff team. Tell a little bit about your emotions when you knew you were going to Milwaukee as opposed to, and you had a chance at least for a playoff run or two.
Yeah, well, my first year in the league, I was in Houston with a great team.
Yeah.
Calvin Murphy and Rudy Tomjanovich and Rick Barry and the late great Moses Malone,
Oh
MVP of the
yeah.
league. So I was his backup and didn't play very much. But then the 2 days before the opening game, I was traded from Houston to Detroit. And I went into Detroit and was not very happy to be going there because they weren't very good. But what it did was I started most of the games. I had my
Yeah.
best year, like 8 points and 7 boards, whatever that was. And I got to play. And I realized, okay, I can play in this league. If I'm not a starter, I'm a 7th man rotation guy in this league. That told me that, and it also told the other teams that. And then, unfortunately, my next year is when we drafted Isaiah Thomas and Kelly Tripucka, and we were turning things around.
Yeah.
And then I got traded right before Christmas in the trade deadline to Cleveland.
Mhm.
Phil Hubbard and I got traded for Bill Lambier and Kenny Carr. So I went to Cleveland then, who wasn't a very good team,
Yeah.
right? And I got to play and I suffered a little bit, but the next year, right before the season started, or no, during that year, they cut me. They let me go, and I was starting. I was playing. I was a
Wow.
starter. And I talked to the general manager. I said, "What do you mean you can't get a 2nd round pick for me? No, nobody wants you." And I'm like, "Oh." So this is right before Christmas, and so I call my agent, and my agent's on the phone, and there's actually 4 or 5 teams that want to sign me, and
Wow.
they want to sign me to like a 10-day contract to see how it works out.
Mhm.
And I had my pick of about 4 or 5 teams. One of them was the Lakers, actually, where I grew up, and I almost picked them. I probably have about 3 championship rings if I did. But I looked at the Milwaukee Bucks as one of the best teams in the East, and that had Bob Lanier, former Detroit Piston, that
Mhm.
was getting ready to retire. So I figured I can be his backup for a while, maybe take that spot and be on a good team for the rest of my career. And That kind of happened. Became a role player, but 7 years in the playoffs. We were the best. We had the best record in the East in the '80s. Better than the Celtics, better than the Pistons, better than Philadelphia, but we could just never get over the hump into the finals. But it was a learning experience for me that, sometimes things don't make sense, but you got to do the best you can. And one of the veterans, after I was traded from Houston to Detroit, I think it was Rudy Tomjanovich, said, "Hey, listen, Mo," and I was upset. He goes, "Listen, you can't rely, you can't keep thinking about the Rockets don't want you. You got to think about, hey, the Pistons do want you, and take that approach." And that's what I did moving forward. But for a lot of time in Milwaukee, loved Milwaukee. Both our sons were born in Milwaukee. Great people. We just couldn't get to the championship, but it's interesting how things turn and situations happen in a career that you end up where you end up.
That 83-84 season, the playoff year in 84, I think you guys get overshadowed, and I remember it. I grew up in the Upper Peninsula, so we watched more Bucks games than we did Pistons games a lot. So I grew up, the Bucks were my second favorite team, but that team that you guys had, you mentioned Bob Lanier, you also had, you had Sidney Moncrief, Nate Archibald was on the Junior Bridgman, Mike Dunleavy, Marcus Johnson.
Marcus Johnson is one of the most underrated players I've ever known. There's two guys that I play with that are like that: Marcus Johnson and Terry Cummings. Both were 6'9" power forwards. TC was more strong and physical, could score 35 in a game and get 12 rebounds. Marcus was more athletic and dynamic, one of the most athletic, dynamic guys I've ever played with. But they were overshadowed, like with our team, because every year, guess who was in the All-Star game at forward in the East? Larry Bird, Dominique Wilkins, every year, and Dr. J. Mm-hmm. So those guys were overlooked, but those teams, when I came on board with Sidney Moncrief and Marcus and Bob and Brian Winters, a great shooter, and Junior Bridgman, God rest his soul, he passed a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Those were great teams, and then we switched over to Jack Sikma and Terry Cummings and Craig Hodges and Ricky Pierce and those teams, Paul Presti's, that, we were right there, every year. And, I had a 12-year career, and I had 9 of those in playoffs and pretty deep runs. So I was happy with that.
Yeah, you did. I can still remember to this day, the Detroit Pistons paid the Bucks $10,000 to draft Sidney Moncrief at 4, so Detroit could get Greg Kelser.
Yeah.
And that'll go down as one of the great ones in Detroit history. I'll never forget that.
That's my class. They didn't pay $10,000 for me. Yeah, Paul, I mean, Sidney became one of Sidney's like another underrated player. I mean, he's 6'4". He, as a rookie, he led the Milwaukee Bucks, a high-level playoff team, in scoring, rebounding, and assists, and steals, by the way.
Unbelievable. Paul, this has been an absolute treat. We're up against it. Thanks for taking time out to be with us here tonight. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Maybe sometime we can get you on again and talk a little more hoops.
Absolutely. And if anybody wants to see more basketball on YouTube, it's called Basketball Past, Present, and Future. We have a show every week. Jesse O, who's our facilitator, and then CJ Watson, who played in the NBA. I coached him in the G League. We talk basketball all the time. So please check us out and subscribe on that on the YouTube channel.
Will do. I'll go do it right after the show. Thank you very much.
You love it, man. I love talking to you. I enjoyed it.
Great. Thanks. We'll